everybody, and welcome to the Move to France Q&A. My name is Allison Lounes. I am the author of Foolproof French Visas. I'm the admin of the Americans in France group on Facebook that has almost 17,000 people in it. I've been helping people move to France since 2014. And I own the relocation agency Your Transformation. So we help people to pursue their dream of moving to France and get the right visa to create their dream life here. I'm really happy to be joining you here today, and we have a lot of great questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the questions that were submitted in advance in the forms. I have everything. I'm reading directly from the form. So anything that was submitted before this call started, I should be able to get to today. It looks like we have 150. Okay, so about 18 questions were submitted, or 18 people submitted questions, and they can submit 2 questions. So I'm going to go through those as best I can. If you already submitted a question, you do not have to submit it again in the chat or the Q&A. But if you didn't get a chance to submit a question in advance, you can go ahead and do that at some point during the call. I am going to focus on the pre-submitted questions first, so we're going in order, and that way, hopefully, I'll be able to cover everybody's question. All right. So first one today is from Matthew, and how do the Passeport Talent Profession Artistique and Personne de Renommée visas differ? Okay, so that question depends a little bit on how famous you are. We're actually putting together a visa quiz that will help you to determine the right visa type for you. The main difference is if you're personne de renommée, you don't have to put together a particular project with specific cracks and revenue in your field. It helps for sure, but they're mostly looking at your experience and how well known you are in your field. So I'm not entirely sure how famous you have to be. We've had 1 or 2 people that we've tried to get in as personne de renommée, but we're not successful, but we did get them in under either Passeport Profession Artistique or Profession Libérale. So it's kind of at the discretion of the visa person. Under the Passport Talent visa, are there limits on how much time we can spend outside of France, i.e. back in the USA, and still maintain our visa? What about obtaining health insurance coverage? So technically, if you are going to be getting a visa, you're supposed to be spending at least 6 to 9 months in France per year. That being said, they don't pay a super lot of attention to how much time you're spending in each place. However, what you need to know is that if you have a visa, you're necessarily going to be a tax resident of France, which means that your income that you are earning gets taxed in France first. Now, if you are physically going to different places to earn your income, like let's say you're a performing artist and you're performing in France versus performing in the US versus performing in other countries, then each of those places is going to sort of have their own rules about what tax your income gets subjected to. Shakira actually just had a big issue with this because she was married to that Spanish guy that she has the new hit song about. And meanwhile, she was living in Spain, but claiming to not be a Spanish tax resident. So she just I think she's in court right now over correctly reporting her income and paying several million euros in potential fines. In terms of maintaining French healthcare, if you're, maintaining an address in France and you're reporting your income regularly in France and all of that, then you should be still maintaining your French healthcare. French healthcare is not going to cover you very generously or easily when you are outside of France. So it's probably best to have some kind of travel insurance policy or health insurance policy that covers you if you're spending a lot of time that's not in France. Okay, Robin. I'm an American citizen. My husband is a French citizen who has been in the US for 12 years. We're moving to France this summer and he has a job lined up at the university. I will not be working. At what point can I apply for PUMA? I keep seeing conflicting information about when spouses can apply before or after I've been there for 3 months. Okay, so I think the confusion comes from the fact that the rules actually changed during COVID, and I'm not entirely sure if they changed back yet. So traditionally, there's been a waiting period of 90 days between when somebody arrives in France and when they can sign up for the French healthcare system if they are not working. During COVID, the 90-day rule was lifted for French citizens, and I believe that is still the case now. If a French person who has lived outside of the US for a long time is then returning to France, they don't have to wait the 90 days. You should not have to wait the 90 days either, I don't think. I actually don't know the answer to that question. I would say what you want to do is make an appointment as soon as your husband has a payslip. He will have to provide his former social security number and they'll have to reactivate it, and it will kind of be a pain in the neck. As soon as you have a payslip for him or some kind of contract, I would bring that and your other documents and make an appointment at your local office and bring them and talk to somebody and try to get them. I don't think you mentioned whether or not you have kids, but especially if you have kids and you want to sign them up for the healthcare and get them on a potential card for you, I would say you want to go as soon as possible and then see what they say, see how they can help you. What is the best way to provide to prove domicile if you are living with in-laws? We provided their passports, a gas bill, and a letter from them, but that was not enough. This is for my carte de séjour. Yes, you want to provide normally their French, yeah, their ID, an electric or a gas bill should work if it's less than 6 months old. Even better is less than 3 months, but most places now are accepting less than 6 months. And then a document called an attestation d'hébergement. So it's not just a letter, it's a specific type of document that you can find a sample of online. And I'm going to type it, an attestation d'hébergement, and it says like their full names and where they live and how long they're hosting you for and whether or not you're paying any rent and all of that jazz. How can I open a French bank account without a RIB? Opening a French bank account gives you a RIB. A RIB is called a relevé d'identité bancaire. And that is your document that has like your bank account numbers and proves that, you are the owner of a particular account. So yeah, so you would open an account and then get a RIB. You can also, like, if you have Wise or if you Revolut or anything like that, that would also give you a RIB. A RIB is sort of the French equivalent of an IBAN. An IBAN is like a very long number. It starts with a 2-digit country code. So for France, it's going to be FR. For Lithuania, like a lot of Revolut accounts are Lithuania, they start with LT. Belgian for Wise is BE. And then it will have like all of the bank routing information followed by your account number. And so it could be like 20 digits long, and that's an IBAN. And a RIB will have your IBAN on it. But a RIB is divided up. It's the same long number, but it's divided up into sections. So like it identifies the country, and then it identifies like the bank, like the bank, and then it identifies like the region and the branch of the bank and the agency and so on and so forth until it gets down to your individual account number. Monica, what are the visa options for digital nomad working remotely for a US company but want to live in France? Self-employment visas. It depends a little bit on your level of income, but you're looking at either Passeport Talent Entrepreneur for setting up a French company and having clients all over the world, or being self-employed, reporting your income as self-employed on a monthly basis and paying social charges off the top, but not having an actual company. We have a lot of clients doing that. Elizabeth, I am a wine writer and hoping this helps me qualify for a Passport Talent. Does it? I would say if you're a writer and you're doing content writing as a service, you're probably more along the lines of profession libérale. But I would say there is a lot of wine to write about here. I have a contract from Wine Magazine located in the US. How much income do I need to prove? The French government is looking for 1,700 euros per month, or 1709, I think is the official SMIC number as of January 1st. So the minimum wage in France is 1,709 euros gross income per month. Works out to about 1,353 euros net. So that's what they're looking for. They are going to want some kind of guest or potential client or something in France to give you a profession libérale visa for that type of income, but there is plenty of wine to write about here. And I would be happy to help you with that business plan. Okay, so the two options are Passport Talent Entrepreneur. That's if you're creating a company. You have to have either 5 years of experience or a master's degree, and you have to invest 30,000 euros in setting up your company in order to do Passport Talent Entrepreneur. The other option is Profession Libérale. And this is what I just said also for Elizabeth, the wine writer, is, that would be any kind of service-based offering where, especially if you don't have very high costs of providing your service. So you're going to be looking at, under 77,000 euros per income per year, but you're declaring your income as you go. You're paying social charges off the top. You're not deducting a lot of expenses. You would not be able to deduct, for example, wine purchases or any travel expenses to vineyards or thing like that. But I can deduct them for professional development reasons. So something to think about. Erin, best case scenario, how long does it typically take for a business visa to be approved? Okay, so there's two types of business visas. Now, the one that I just mentioned is Passport Talent Entrepreneur, and the other one is either commerçant or, commerçant would be if you're setting up a company, but you don't have the master's degree or 5 years of experience, or you're not investing 30,000 euros or more. Now, we have not done very many commerçant visas because most people are going to be opting for the Passport Talent Entrepreneur. First part is going to be writing the business plan and working on the business and doing the financial projections. And then there are a couple of different steps like depositing the social capital, writing the company documents, making sure you're working with an accountant, getting a company address, etc. Now, if you're working with us on this, our team takes care of all of this, and we have contacts in each of those areas so that we can support you through getting all of those steps set up for the business. Once you have all those documents together, you're going to now submit your request to the Ministry of the Economy for a certificate of viability. And so you're going to submit all of your business documents that explain what you want to do, who you're going to work with, why your project is viable, etc. Again, we do all of this if we're working together. Once you submit that, it can be about 4 weeks for a response. The most recent ones we've done were about 4 weeks from submission to getting approval. If they do reject it, we had one that was rejected the first time because we only did a partial year of financial projections. And in that case, you can resubmit additional information. So we just added an additional year and then submitted it again, and it was approved. So that will take about a month, maybe 6 weeks. Once you have that certificate of viability, at that point, you can go make your visa appointment. And from the visa appointment, I am expecting that now that this pre-approval process is in place, that visa processing time is actually reduced. So our early passport talent applications were taking the full 90 days between submission and people getting their visas back. Now it seems to be taking more like 3 to 4 weeks. So I'm hoping that that trend continues and that implementing this Ministry of the Economy pre-approval certificate is now going to reduce visa processing time. What are healthcare options for expats? French healthcare is great, and you can sign up after you're here for 90 days. So when you are on a visitor visa, you are going to be required to get an insurance policy that covers you for the full year in the complete Schengen space, up to 30,000 euros of coverage, no deductible, and includes repatriation. Those are the requirements. We have some companies that we work with that can provide policies relatively inexpensively, and we provide those quotes as part of our service. Now, if you're on any other visa type, you do not have to have any particular type of coverage, and they don't ask for it as part of the visa application. That being said, it's still a good idea. Now, it depends a little bit on what type of visa you're applying for and what you're planning on doing for work once you arrive. If you're coming for a job, then you're going to start working when you arrive. Your company will file to get you onto French healthcare. You'll request a social security number based on your work contract, and you'll be covered basically from the day that you start working. If you're on a self-employment visa and you're going to be setting up as an auto entrepreneur, once you register your business, that will automatically send the healthcare information to URSAF, and they will issue a social security number, and you will again be covered relatively quickly. It's when you're coming as a family member or if you're not going to be working that you have to wait the 90 days. And in that case, you do want to have a policy that will cover you for at least basic or catastrophic needs, during that gap. And it can take longer than the 90 days to actually get confirmation that you're in the system and have your attestation des droits in order to renew. We like to start the process really early because it can take, a full 6 months to get all of the information that you need. And you need to have the certificate or the attestation des droits in order to renew your visitor visa, especially. So we have some policies that we work with, but it really depends on what visa you're looking at. The other thing to keep in mind is that if you're coming, because you asked the question about the passport talent entrepreneur, if you're going with a passport talent entrepreneur, you have to have the company registered and get the company registration document called the cabis, which needs to be included in your healthcare registration. So that can sometimes take longer than 3 months. You'll have to have that you apply for once you arrive, and then you'll have to have the cabis because the company is registered. Laura, I am 64 and have not yet retired. Do I need a visa if I plan to spend 3 to 4 months a year in France before moving there once I do retire? So if you're spending more than 90 days out of any 180-day period, then yes, you would need a visa. If you're going to spend 2 months, let's say April, May, and then you're going to spend September, October, then you're not going to need a visa for those 2 trips. How do I know what visa to apply for if I am semi-retired and plan on working and being self-employed while in France, i.e. TEFL, teaching English, or online Etsy store income? You would need a self-employment visa if you're going to be self-employed. So it doesn't matter if you're also retired or have other sources of income. You need to always have a visa that enables you to work if you're going to be working. So online English teaching is a profession libérale. Richard, I understand France does not have a digital nomad visa, but what is the legality of an EU citizen with US green card spending up to 6 months per year working remotely in France for the US employer? You would have to have your US employer give you a contract for working in France and register to have employees in France and justify why they're sending you to France. And then there's the issue of filing taxes for the amount of time that you spent in France and the money that you earned while you were a French tax resident. Depending on the answer above, what visa would their US spouse need to stay in France longer than the normal 90 out of 180 rules allow? So again, if you're here for this is where it gets a little tricky because as an EU citizen, you have the right to freedom of movement if you are exercising your treaty rights. And that means either you're working or you're self-supporting. And it doesn't necessarily allow you to have your spouse like travel indefinitely as a tourist. It means that you and your spouse can establish residence in another EU country. So either you're here or you're not. If you're here for 6 months, a non-EU person is supposed to have a carte de séjour. You make the appointment for the carte de séjour, you submit it online now within the first 90 days of arriving. But that starts the process to establish French residency. So if you're not planning on staying, then you're not going to establish residency. So I would say that you want to respect the 90-day rule unless you plan on being here long term and figuring out some way to legally get paid and be a tax resident of France. Dave, we are retirees wanting to move to France long term later this year. What is the quickest way to get on the French healthcare system? Wait 90 days. If you're retired, then there's no way to get around the 90-day wait. If you are self-employed, then you find an address and you register your self-employment activity as quickly as possible. I have actually, for certain people, I have advised them to do that when they are, if they have, especially if they have medical needs in their family and they have a way that they can make some kind of small self-employment income. I have encouraged them to do that because it gets them on the system faster. Richard, I just purchased a house in 34 Hérault. Everybody that I talk to now, since my colleague is in the Montpellier area, it seems to me like everybody now is coming to go to Montpellier. I've just purchased a house in Department 34, Hérault. I will not be moving to France at this time. I do plan to spend time there doing renovation work and will need to be there more than 90 days every 180 days. I doubt that I would be there for longer than 4 months at a time, but may make more than one trip a year. I've just returned from a 21-day trip, etc. Is the visa de long séjour temporaire the best route for me? I will not be employed in France. I'm willing to apply for this again after the first year, if that is allowed. I've read it cannot be renewed. Yeah, so you can apply for it, but you have to go back to the US every single time. And so what the temporary stay visa does, the long séjour temporaire, like you're not establishing tax residency, you're not able to renew it, you're not able to stay for longer than a year. So if you want to apply for it again, you would have to return to the US and apply again in the US, and you have to wait until the first one is expired. So you can't have overlapping visas. So we just had clients who they did the visa themselves the first year. They got the long séjour temporaire by accident. And so they had been intending on staying, but for whatever reason, like they didn't realize when they were filling out the forms. So their visa expired like December 10th, and we got them an appointment for December 12th or 13th to go back to the consulate to apply for a new visa. So you'll have to do that. You have to wait until one expires before you can apply for the next one. Teresa, what is the availability of dental care in Paris? There are lots of dentists in Paris. A thing that's becoming really common now is like medical centers that have salaried dentists, but that charge conventional social security rates. So in Paris, access to dental care is absolutely fine. For things like deep cleanings, I see in your second question, it can be a little bit harder because the deep cleaning is more of like an American thing. So there are some dentists that do that, but it tends to be dentists who were trained or did part of their education in the US. Carla, do I have to do a 2-year master's program to qualify for recherche d'emploi, création d'entreprise? Or could I do 1 year of intensive language studies plus a 1-year master's program? It needs to be a 2-year degree program. Is there a list of master's programs that are acknowledged by the Préfecture for the recherche d'emploi, création d'entreprise? There's no master list to the best of my knowledge. It has to be a 2-year degree. So anything that's messed up or their equivalent. So a lot of times like MBA programs that are 18 months will qualify even if, technically it's not 2 full years. But yeah, 2 full years ending in a degree. Question 2, I would like to do a year of intensive 20 hours per week French classes at an FLA certified Alliance Française before beginning a master's program. How likely is it that I can get a renewable visa for this scenario? I have a BA in French from 20 years ago, so I'm rusty. And ultimately, my goal would be recherche d'emploi, création d'entreprise, so I can find a job and live in France for the foreseeable future. Okay, so a couple of things. Yeah, so after it is perfectly valid to put on your visa application and to talk in your Campus France interview about, I want to get my French up to par in order to then enroll in a particular master's program of a particular type, for your professional development. That is absolutely a fine thing that you can do in your Campus France application. So the best thing to do is to talk about how, you know, refreshing your French is going to further your goal of enabling you to study in France and then finding jobs in French speaking. And I would say like you want to potentially be a little bit vague about whether that includes like staying in France or returning to the US after your studies or whatever. But if you talk about long-term plans for multiple years of study in France, really it shouldn't be an issue. Even better if it's directly related to something that you've done before and it's like a little bit of, they call it like reconversion professionnelle, where you're like slightly tweaking your professional track, but not doing something totally completely different and out there. The one thing that makes me a little bit concerned is that your BA in French is 20 years ago. So I will say age discrimination is a real thing in France. I don't know if it's particular like just to France. I will say that I've seen it very commonly. If you are mid to late 40s and you are considering doing 3 years of studying to then get a recherche d'emploi création d'entreprise and then start looking for jobs in your late 40s, early 50s, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. I don't have any particular advice to give to you. You want to make sure that you are doing a good program, that you do something called a validation des acquis et de l'expérience. So this is VAE, and it's when you show your previous work experience and your previous degrees and any course experience that was not taken into account with a degree, and have that sort of validated as like being equivalent to a degree. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, unemployment starting for people in their early 50s is like it's a big issue. And I would just be really careful. Consider self-employment. I don't know what field you're in based on based on the questions that you've answered, but you do want to be careful, because it's not going to be easy to find a job. You're going to be competing against young graduates who are looking for entry-level jobs, who are able to do lots of internships. And so your best bet is going to be going to a really good program that gets you a really good internship opportunity that takes into account your international experience, and then hopefully landing a good position from there. But it's not easy for French people to find jobs in midlife. Okay, Erin, for the Profession Libérale visa application, do the letters of intent from potential French clients need to have an actual amount of euros they'd spend for your services, or just say they'd be willing to hire you? Yeah, they can just say like they're willing to hire you, they're willing to talk to you, that they have clients to potentially send, they can help you network, they can, things like that. At this point, it's very nebulous what they're looking for in terms of having your professional contacts in France. Question 2, are the business plans still not required to be evaluated by DREETS for the Profession Libérale Micro-Entrepreneur visa? They are still exempt from that whole procedure, so you do not have to worry about that. We're just now starting the process of updating foolproof French visas, but yeah, no, micro-entrepreneur or Profession Libérale visas are not subject to approval from anything outside the consulate. Okay, Rebecca, my spouse is self-employed and can work from any location. I do contract work and can also work from any location. I'd like to know if there's a visa we would be eligible for. We're located in the US. Okay, so again, 2 options. There's Passeport Talent Entrepreneur. You're creating a French company. You can do that together if you want. That requires 5 years of professional experience and a 30,000 euro investment, or a master's degree and the investment. Or there's Profession Libérale, which is you're self-employed, you're earning under 77,700 euros per year for services. And in either case, they're going to look at potential for having French clients or developing in the French and European market, and what are your potential business opportunities in France. And that's something that we work on with our clients to develop that as part of the business plan so that the application goes through. Lauren, when filling out the visa application, it asks for an address in France. If we have not yet secured housing for our arrival, is there another way to submit the application? Would an Airbnb booking for the first 3 months be sufficient? Yes, we advise our clients to book an Airbnb at the beginning of their stay. It doesn't even have to be for 3 months. It could just be for like a couple of weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. And I mean, we wait to validate people's visas until they move into a long-term place. So we actually don't encourage you to do it for 3 months. We encourage you to do it for 4 weeks and then spend every available minute trying to secure housing for that first month, because it can take a while, but we would rather have you sign, validate your visa, register your business, anything that you're going to do, have it done to a permanent address where you can get mail, so that, you don't have to change your address with everything the next month. Does the talent visa automatically give you 4 years, or is it good for 1 year to start and then have to be renewed for the full 4 years once in France? So it depends on the type of talent visa. If you're talking about a talent passport, a passport talent entrepreneur, then yes, it's 4 years. So the visa is actually for 3 months. You request the carte de séjour upon arrival in France, and the carte de séjour is going to be valid for 4 years. For the salaried worker passport talent, it depends on how long the contract is, if it's a CDD, if it's a CDI, etc. And then for artists, it also depends on, sometimes on the consulate's whims. Jim, what is the best way to ensure that I can get a self-employment visa? I work in the physical technology industry. Work with us. I would say the best way is that you want to have a really solid idea of what you can offer to clients in France and around the world, and to have a really solid idea of what you need to be able to do to run the business successfully in France. So if that's providing services and consulting services, then what services specifically are you going to provide? How are you going to be charging for them? What are the expenses associated with operating that business? Things of that nature. And then what does that sector look like in France? What are your opportunities for finding jobs and collaborating with French companies or European companies or anything like that? And that's something we put a lot of work into doing with our clients when we're working on the business plan for them. Barring a self-employment visa, any suggestions on how to find companies that work in the same space? I would say for technology sectors, you're going to want to look at some like job postings on LinkedIn and on Glassdoor. You're going to want to see the types of projects that those French companies are doing. You're going to want to maybe look at some of the tech incubators or business incubators and what some of the startup firms are doing. You want to look at cities like Grenoble, Lounes, Bordeaux, Nantes, obviously Paris, but there's a lot of Paris. I don't know. I feel like Paris is a little bit harder, but I would say you want to look at local job postings, and especially the business incubators, and seeing what projects are being incubated there. Tom, I am hearing about expats having their U.S. financial accounts closed. Any advice or insights on this? Obtain a U.S. address. Don't tell your bank that you're living in France. Some of them don't like it. It's not illegal to live in France and to have a U.S. bank account, but some people like to complain about it on the internet, which makes you think that it's a bigger problem than it is. Okay. Jessica says, I would like to know how to convert to a longer term visa, but I don't know anything about your situation. So Jessica, if you're on here, you're going to have to elaborate. All right. And I've got 2 questions in the Q&A. What is considered a standard requirement for French language proficiency? I have a B1, B2 level now, mostly in reading and writing, a BA in French from college, and have been speaking with almost native proficiency for roughly 50 years. That sounds good to me. I'm not sure what the question is, Jim. I mean, here's the thing. You're always going to be learning French. Unless you are a native speaker, you are always going to be learning French. I deal with new situations all the time. I've been living here for 15 years. I came here, I already had a master's degree in French and was fluent, but I was fluent in stuff like literary devices and philosophy, which is not super helpful when you need to deal with real life situations. And, the first time you buy a house, or you have to deal with an electrical problem, or you have to do works, or your kid goes to a new activity, or you want to join a new activity and start a new hobby, or you want to cook a new recipe, like anytime you do anything like that, there's new vocabulary. I have been ice skating for my whole life as a hobby. I'm not like, good, but I took classes when I was a kid up until I was a teenager, and I recently joined an ice skating club. And you know what? I don't know any of the vocabulary for ice skating in French. Fortunately, they use a lot of the English words, or it's international enough that if you know the English word for something, like they're going to be able to tell you the French word. But there's still words that I learn every week doing that. So I'm never going to be done. And, sometimes I used to sing in choirs before my son was born. I stopped when he was a baby. But, so all the music terminology I had to learn in French. And if I go back, I'm taking piano lessons, or I'm practicing piano. And eventually, if I go back and do lessons with a teacher and it's a French speaking teacher, there's probably more music vocabulary that I don't know, and all of the music words are in Italian anyway. So it's always you're always going to be learning French, and it's really just about like, can you communicate? And to me, the key of proficiency and the key to am I really fluent in a language? I try to have the same personality in French that I have in English. To me, that is, I try very hard, and it's not easy in the beginning, and it's very tiring, and you feel like you can't express yourself the same way and you can't be the same person emotionally, and you can't have the same deep conversations in French that you might have in English or whatever. So for me, what I really strive for, especially in personal relationships, is can I express myself the same way? Can I be the same person with my friends in French or with people that I'm speaking to in French as I can in English? And to me, that's the integrity of becoming fluent and integrating the two languages into myself. But, your mileage may vary. Reinsurance for a family visa application. If a mom is pursuing profession libérale and dad is a visiteur, would we have to have proof of insurance still? Or so for our families where we have a lot of clients like this, one of the partners is and the other one is visitor. So it's the visitor person who needs to have the insurance, but you don't need to have it for both necessarily. Again, it's still potentially a good idea to have an insurance policy for both, but not required. According to my friends, my wife, and my children, I'm a different person when I speak French. Yeah. Yeah, it's real. It's real. I noticed that because I used to go to the Middlebury College summer language program. I was there for 3 summers. And it's funny because I feel like the better you are at a language, the more you're able to be more or less the same person in both. But it's also like it's different ways of expressing ideas. So when you adapt, like there's lots of studies about this. I don't know them off the top of my head, but it's a really interesting thing to read about. Like when you're speaking in a different language, you're speaking with the ideas and the phrase, like the different phrases and the different vocabulary of whatever language you're using. And so the way that the ideas are expressed are not the same. And that can also have an impact on not just how people interpret what you're saying, but like how you relate to whatever it is. It's really interesting. It's really interesting. Okay. I have 15 years of experience in corporate retail, buying, planning, forecasting, supply chain, merchandising, licensing, if that impacts anything. I mean, it really depends on what kind of company you're looking for. I mean, to me, that's really good, you know, professional experience. I don't know what you would be doing for a master, like something in business, maybe. BAs a lot of the time will have students of all ages. So that could potentially be a good in for you. I really worry about people starting master's programs starting mid 40s. If you start a master's program and then you figure if you have a year of language studies, 2 years of a master's program, and 1 year of a job searching visa, it starts to get really dicey for looking for jobs. For a student visa, is there a minimum level of class time? Yeah, 20 hours a week. 20 hours a week at a minimum for language classes. If you have a student visa, you can work part-time. Is it possible to work part-time for a US company remotely? Only if they can give you a French contract. So if you're a student visa, you can work up to 964 hours per visa year. That's from the start date of your visa for 1 year. It works out to about 20-ish hours a week, a little more if you like take vacation and, like sometimes like you work full-time on vacation and then you work less during the regular academic year, whatever. But as a rule, yeah, you can work for a CDD or CDI in a French company. But if you're working for a US company, then there are a couple of options. They can either put you on a local contract and like have employees in France and do the declarations that they need to do to have French employees. You cannot be self-employed, so you can't register as auto entrepreneur and invoice them and do all of that stuff. You can't register a company, so you can't do passport, you can't start a business really and invoice them as a company. You can also do a portage salarial. So a portage salarial is like a local company that will basically invoice your US company, give you a local French contract, do your pay slips and all of that. It's going to cost you about 50% of the total amount that you're invoicing. So just be aware of that. Those are your main options. I will say it is possible if you are on a profession libérale visa or a self-employment visa, you can enroll in school. Nobody's stopping you from taking intensive French classes if you are a student. I mean, if you're self-employed. It's the other way around that it's tricky. So student, you cannot be self-employed. Self-employed on a self-employment visa, enroll in whatever you want, learn stuff. Okay. Robin, I very occasionally do some consulting, continuing education lectures in the US. I don't get taxed on this because the income is very little since it's just a few times a year. I will be on a VPF so I can work in France, weekly based familial so I can work in France. But from a tax perspective, can I do this? You need to register as auto entrepreneur. Even if it's only very part-time and very casual, I want to say there's a really good percentage of auto entrepreneurs that don't even make 5,000 euros a year. So, but it's from the first euro, you have to be registered. Luckily, if you're on a vie privée familiale visa, you can register without, you don't have to do anything specific visa wise. All right, I've got time for one or two more questions if you can think of anything else. I can't believe I got through all of them so quickly. All right, can I get paxed with my boyfriend without actually living in France yet? Yes, but it's not going to help you get a visa. To get a vie privée familiale visa from being paxed, you need to be paxed for 12 months and you need to be living together for 12 months. So if either one of those conditions are not met, you would only be entitled to a visitor visa that doesn't allow you to work. So if you haven't been paxed for 12 months, if you haven't been living together for 12 months, you want to look at potentially other visa options. All right. Oh, more came in. For Profession Libérale, how many letters of intent from French companies are they looking for? 2 or 3 more? 2 or 3 is usually fine. 2 or 3. I wouldn't worry too much about it. It also depends a little bit on how you're framing your services pricing. Like if you're doing if you're saying like you're a translator and you're charging 40 euros a page, or if you're, I don't know, tutoring and charging 25 euros an hour, having 2 or 3 letters, it's like, okay, well, you're going to make 150 bucks a month, which is not that much. If you are charging, because I know you're in marketing, Erin, like if you're charging like 1,500 euros for an SEO package and you have like 1 or 2 people interested in there, that's a lot different of a conversation. If you're a tutor, but then you're saying like, oh, I'm going to sell a package of 10 tutoring sessions for 350 euros, like that hits a lot differently than I have 1 or 2 clients who are going to hire me for 1 or 2 tutoring sessions. You see the difference? Okay, if I go on a passport talent visa, can my wife work? Yes. So if you're on a passport talent visa, one of the main benefits is that there's an accompanying family member visa for the spouse and minor children up to age 21, and so that enables them to work. And there's no particular restriction on the talent passport spouse working. So she can work part-time, full-time, CDD, CDI, self-employment. I'm not sure if she would be able to register a company. That's the only restriction I can think of. And even that, like, I'm not really sure. It could be possible, but I haven't tried it. Do business plans for Profession Libérale Micro Entrepreneur need to be extensive? If we already have some clients lined up, can we keep it simple? I mean, ours are like 10 pages. The very first one that I did was like 90 pages because I was super anxious about it and wanted to like prove, beyond a reasonable doubt that this business was real and could make money and whatnot. But yeah, now they're more like 10, maybe 15. And then a couple of pages of financial projections, which I think you had talked about doing the complete French business incubator. So we give you all the templates for all of that stuff and tell you exactly what to write. What visas are available to 1099 contract employees? Okay, so for the 4th time today, if you're self-employed, then it's either Profession Libérale or Passeport Talent Entrepreneur. So you would have to have some kind of way to be registered in France and be reporting that income here. If I submit for a renewable student visa with only my Alliance Française registration, how likely are they to give me a long séjour or visa instead? It depends on how much you sign up for French classes and what the school is and how many hours a week and for how long. I would say if you want to get a student visa for intensive French language classes, you want to have, 1, be placing into a level that's not A1. 2, you want to enroll for at least 20 hours a week for 9 months and not have too much of a break. So no more than like 2 weeks of vacation at a time, unless it's like the summer. And 3, I would say when you talk to Campus France or when you submit your documents to Campus France, you're going to be explaining to them why you want to study French and what your ultimate career goals are once you have good enough French to find employment. Martine, I'm a French citizen living in the USA and I'm moving back later this year. Can I apply for French insurance while in the States, or do I have to wait the 3 months after moving to France? You can as a French citizen, you can get on French healthcare immediately after moving back. You can send in your application as soon as you get back here. That changed during COVID. All right, well, that brings us to the end of our Q&A. So it's very nice to see all of you here today. I do offer individual 1-hour consultations if you would like personal evaluation of your situation and would like to have me answer all of your questions individually. The next Q&A is going to be 1 month from today on Monday, March 6th. What else do I want to tell you? If you would like to work with us, we do help people move to France, do their visa applications, and do a lot of the admin setup that we talked about today. So please feel free to get in touch with me. Let me give you the link to the consulting sessions and all that jazz in. All right. So if you would like to talk with me about your move to France and how we can support you in doing your visa application and getting you set up, we provide service packages that will follow you through the whole process from doing the visa application and preparing the other administrative aspects to your move all the way through arrival, and even up to telling you that it's time to renew your visa. And those calls are typically done when you're considering whether or not working with us would be the right option for you. So normally a couple months, like 3 months if you're a visitor, even 6 months, even up to a year if you're starting a business and you want our help with the business plan and setting up a talent passport, for example. If you would like to do a 1-hour call with me, it's for answering all of your questions. So we don't have time in the free call to talk through a lot of your questions about the admin aspects. It's more about questions like about how we work and how we support you in your move and what package might be a good option for you and whether or not we're a good fit to work together. For the paid consultations, it's 1 hour. You get an hour of my time, and it's yours to do what you want with. So we're not necessarily talking about packages. We're just answering your questions. And it can be like people get on calls with me 3, 4, 5 years in advance. They want to plan things out. They want to, understand how things work and what they need to do to prepare, even a few years in advance. So those links are in the chat if you are interested. And there's also, if you are very far in advance and you just want to keep getting to know me and my company and how we work, you are very welcome to continue showing up to these free Q&As. This recording will go on to YouTube in the next couple of days. And yeah, next one, same time, same place, Monday, March 6th. So thank you very much for coming, and I will see you then. Thank you. All right, I'm just going to copy all of these questions here. All right, have a good night, everybody. Bye.